Hello guys, my name is Augusto. This is my YouTube channel. I've already done a video in English, but I'm trying to commit to all the Juventini out there that of course are English spoken to keep you updated at least once a week to what's going on with our favorite club, the Bianconeri. And I also realized that I could not have picked a more challenging year to start this channel, which was open in February, just because the summer has been pretty challenging and the transfer market has been very sleepy. So it's very hard to put together new contents. However, thank you to the Mondiale per Club, because without the World Cup that we had this summer, we probably would have had at least even less content. And I also participated in one of the games, and I was there to kind of like tell you what was going on. But without further ado, let's start talking about what's going on with Juventus in the last few days. First of all, I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel. Very important. It's free, but it really helps me a lot. And then at the same time, please leave a comment. I'm really, curious to know what is your opinion about the transfer market and what's going on in the Juventus world. And also leave a like. Thank you. So, believe it or not, I know it's hard, but the Serie A, it's starting this weekend. It's kind of hard to think about it because we have the feeling that the season just ended with the Mondiale per Club, but in reality, it is here around the corner. And Sunday we're going to have to go against Parma, and we're going to play at the stadium in Turin. And it's a pretty challenging team. I mean, last year in both occasions we have been troubled by this game. Parma has a very young squad. We understand that this year they sold some of their best players, like Bonni to Inter, like I think some also left as well. And Leoni went to Liverpool, pretty young and strong defender. And at the same time, they just hire a very young coach, which is like probably one of the youngest that's ever coached a team in Serie A. And then Kivu, the former coach, went to Inter Milan. So it's going to be interesting for us to see what Parma is going to be able to show during this game. Also, they just played in Coppa Italia this weekend. They won 2-0 against Pescara with a double from Pellegrino, a 2001 striker, which last year only played a few games, probably 12, 13 games, but still scoring a few goals. And I think this year has this huge opportunity to kind of show proof and showcase of his skills with Parma, because probably he's going to get more playing time and more consistent. At the same time, I think if you have been watching Juventus in the past few games, it's clear that Tudor's ideas with the current squad of formation and kind of like players, it's pretty clear. We might have a couple of doubts in a couple of areas, probably in the back line and maybe midfield, but more or less I think the formation and the squad that will start the game is going to be this one. We're going to have Di Gregorio, our goalkeeper, probably on the right. That's one of the places in which we could see either Gatti or Kalulu starting. In the middle, Bremer, which seems to gain strength and more form week by week. On the left side, we're probably going to see Kelly, our only left-footed defender. Probably on the right side, I think the new signee, João Mário, which has shown a lot of quality, especially like in the forward position. And then that's another area that I think in between Locatelli and Koop, one of the two is going to take that central position. Thuram, I think, is going to be, of course, playing on the mid-left. And then we're going to have Cambiaso on the left side. And striker, the new signee as well, Jonathan David, and then right behind them, the amazing Yildiz and most likely Chico Conceição. I think that that's going to be the squad, and I think that Juventus more or less has a competitive team. Not much has changed from last year, but I do believe that the only problem that we're going to have to encounter is like there are some positions in which we're missing player at this time, and if you think about it, the transfer market is almost done. So before we move on and we think about what's going on with the transfer market, I also want to say that we have a different type of vibe this year. It's clear that Tudor has been able to kind of like bring a little bit more of that joy and that kind of like team mentality that was completely missing last year with Thiago Motta as a coach. And also, I do believe that the new staff, like the new director Comolli, and the appointing of Modesto, and also the stepping up of Giorgio Chiellini has kind of like created a better foundation for the team, and that's going to be very important. It's going to give more of a balance feeding to the entire environment, and also we've already seen it. We're not backing down and just selling players for a few dimes like we used to do in the past few years. But there are a few things to talk about in regard to the transfer market. The Kolo Muani situation has become almost like a soap opera if you think about it. Every week we say that we're very close. I think that Juventus has now this principle in which before you purchase a player, you need to open like a slot in the squad, and right now Juventus has not been able to sell many players. In fact, that's why I think there is this stalling situation with Kolo Muani, especially because they are 100% in agreement with the player in regard of the annual fee, but they're trying to kind of figure out if they can save a few million with the Paris Saint-Germain, which is asking more than 60 million euros, and Juventus would like to settle in the 50 range. So this has to be the week in which Juventus finally go full force on Kolo Muani, especially because if you remember last year, we bought Koop Miners at the end of the transfer market, and Koop Miners has skipped the entirety of the training season, the preseason, in which you do a lot of the physical work, because he decided to just not show up to the to training with Atalanta, and at the end of the day we pay the price because he never really got in a good form almost for the entire year, due to some physical issues as well, to some injuries as well. But Kolo Muani has been also training by himself, so I think it's very important to move forward and bring Kolo home before the beginning of the season. So this should be hopefully the week. At the same time, there has been an offer that came from Saudi Arabia for Manuel Locatelli, 25 million euros. Juventus said thank you, but no thank you. And I do believe that even if a lot of us have some sort of like love and hate for Locatelli, but in the past season, he has demonstrated that he can be part of the squad. I'm not saying he should be the one, in the starting 11 all the time, but I do believe that Locatelli has grown quite a bit. And also at this time, in this moment, with this transfer market in which you have like a lot of issues in other area that you need to fill with good players, I think getting rid of one that has the most experience with Juventus, I think this one is the third or fourth year with Juventus, it wouldn't make any sense. We've seen him also in some occasions. I remember lastly, of course, like the penalty they took with Venezia that allowed us to actually finally go to Champions League and got the fourth spot in the ranking. But even like with the friendly against Borussia, Locatelli went to Conceição after his yellow card, and after Conceição lost his temper a little bit and kicked the ball, risking a second yellow card, and let him know that it is a friendly, calm down, and that's a typical behavior of somebody that has become a leader. So we like it or not, I think selling Locatelli right now would be wrong, especially for 25 millions. We know it, Juventus know it, so I don't think the Juventus is going to be, giving Locatelli away. Maybe for 40 million, they will start talking about it, but I do believe with this transfer market, for less than 40, 35 million, Juventus is not going to even sit down at the table. At the same time, we have Nico Gonzalez. Nico Gonzalez has been near this possible transfer to Atletico Madrid. So far, I mean, we have not received a proper offer from Atletico, so we don't know if this is going to be something that is going to go through before the end of the transfer market. Atletico lost the first game 2-1. A couple of Italian players, Ruggeri, a defender from Atalanta, and Raspadori from Napoli have had their first game with the team of Simeone, and I think that they will have most likely to do something on the market as well, because they have some of the same issues that Juventus has. They probably miss a striker, and also they're looking to kind of find a some sort of like a winger, which Nico Gonzalez could be the right profile. I really hope so, because we definitely need to get some players sold as fast as possible. Otherwise, we're going to have like a very, very large squad to manage, and it's not going to be very easy, and the roster is definitely too long. At the same time, we've been talking about Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz has been talking with the Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest that not only won the first game, but has already invested over 150 million pounds in this transfer market. And I think that they've already have an agreement, a full agreement with the player about like, the annual fee and everything else. But Juventus doesn't want to sell the player and create deficit, in the P&L. So they definitely are trying to find, an agreement on the value of the player. But I do believe that this one could be the week in which Douglas Luiz as well says goodbye to Juventus. And that's my opinion. I would think that we will regret not giving Douglas Luiz a second chance, even if he didn't play well, even if he had like his personal issues, physical issues, whatever you probably can name it. But I do believe that the player has a lot to give. And I don't really agree to get rid of a player, at the end of the transfer market, to get another player that, doesn't even know what, Juventus is. At least Douglas Luiz has already some sort of an idea of like the environment, the squad, the teammates. So I don't know. He made mistakes, but if it was me, I would have invested more time on this player, because at the end of the day, it was a large $50 million investment in between players exchange, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There has been talking about Zegrova. Zegrova, we have seen it last year against Juventus, is a great player, but he's more like a proper winger. And I don't really know if this time Juventus needs that type of player. I think Juventus needs very good, very strong, very intelligent and skilled, midfielder. We definitely need like a right kind of like winger that can play the defensive portion and the attacking portion. And then more or less we're kind of there at this time, because we need Colomoni. Of course, we need a second striker, and we're going to talk about Vlahovic in a second. But I do believe that the name of O'Reilly, the name of Zegrova, they are very attracting, especially Zegrova, because yes, he has been injured. He had like that very challenging groin issue that kind of affected the entire season. But, at the same time, I think that Juventus needs something different. He needs more personality in the midfield, especially because, yes, you're moving Con Miners back there. He's not going to be, behind the strikers anymore, probably this season. We've seen Tudor placing the Dutch player in that position, but I do believe that we need something different back there. So let's keep our eyes and ears open on both Zegrova and O'Reilly. But again, if we don't get rid of some player and sell some players, I think Juventus is going to have a hard time to just purchase, somebody else. And then I want to ask you a question, because right now I want to know what you think. Romelu Lukaku suffered a very, very challenging injury. He pulled completely his wasn't a hamstring, but was like the abductor. So he's going to be out probably between 3 and 5 months, and they're even talking about a probable surgery procedure. So Napoli is going to have to go back to the transfer market and probably, actually for sure, buy a striker, because they only have Lorenzo Luca. So I'm going to ask you, do you think Dusan Vlahovic is an opportunity? Honestly, I don't think so, because Lukaku is pretty different from Vlahovic. Lukaku has such a better control of the ball, and he defends the ball very well, allows the squad to breathe and actually to move forward. But there could be still, even if I'm very sad for Lukaku, of course, like we want the player to be healthy and play and, make us enjoy what they do every weekend. But maybe Napoli is going to try to get into that Højlund Milan kind of situation, and maybe help us out by purchasing Højlund and convince Højlund to go to Napoli, and at that point pushing Milan to make a move on Dusan Vlahovic, because again, the transfer market is almost over with, and we know that the weight of Vlahovic on our P&L is pretty crazy. We're talking about 40 millions a year. So if we could kind of like free up that space and invest the money in other players, I think that would be a very, very good thing for Juventus. So let's see what happens. Of course, we have other players that we need to kind of some way, somehow loan around. We've been hearing about Artur possibly going back to Grêmio, going back to Brazil. That would be amazing. 4 years that we have this player, and it's clear that has never been part of the project. So it would be great to be able to, finally let him go to a place in which he can also play and have fun again. And then also Kostić, guys. Kostić, I understand that is the only second line that we have behind Cambiaso on the left wing, but at the same time, it's a player that to me has seen better days, and I've seen him in a lot of trouble in the past friendly and stuff. So I do hope that we can finally move on and most likely even loan him to a different team. I'm gonna end this video saying that we have next year is going to be interesting summer for Juventus because a lot of players are at the end of their contract. So we're going to have 6-7 players that are going to be completely gone, like players like McKennie, players like Kostić, players like Dusan Vlahovic. So there is a lot going on, but I have a lot of faith for this year for Juventus. I think that, no matter what, we do have some sort of structure of the team. Tudor has an idea of how this team should play. So let's stay positive. I'm going to keep you posted, and I'm trying to commit to a video at least every week or so. Please comment down below. I need a like. I need your support. And thank you very much, guys. And always, Forza Juventus. Ciao.